Welcome to my little storage basket. I'll call it little trough there. Hello, orientalis, which I do like to use in hanging baskets, by the way. Now, I don't have any to show you on. I do this often for something. Here's what I see. Damage can form. But in this case, I am definitely going to Well, I read a wonderful article recently, you guys. I believe it was in Fine Gardening, about 4 upgrades to your landscape that will make a huge impact. And these are things that really don't cost any money. Anyone can do them. And now is the prime time to go out and assess your landscape to see if some of these things might be actionable items that you want to put on your gardening to-do list either now or in the spring. And obviously I've got 4 of them. You guys probably have more. So please, in the comments below, what I love about all of you, I learn so much from you. I always say I'm kind of a pretend gardener and I'm not formally trained, and so I just advance ideas that have worked for me, and if they work for me, maybe they'll work for you, and that works conversely. So if something that works for you will also work for me and everybody else. So make sure to read each other's comments, because I'm sure you guys will have great answers to the question of the day, which is, tell me something else that can really give you an immediate upgrade to your landscape and put it over the top. So for me, as long as I have gardened and started to be on gardening tours, one of the most frequently asked questions that I have gotten back when I had real turf, and even now that I have faux turf, is how do I get that really crisp, tailored line around my grass edging. And I do that by something that is called I just dig a mini trench. Now, I first learned about this, well, the first time I learned about it actually was at a priory in Scotland, and they had all of their beds edged like this with a very crisp line and a little bit of a trough that then just went up into a bed that kind of rounded down to that trough. So I really deconstructed it to see what they had done, and then I replicated that look when I got home. The second place that I saw it was in a Southern Living article, I don't know how many years ago, and it showed what I am demonstrating right now, and that is where you basically just make a trench. And I've gone into the flower bed a little bit here so you can see what I'm doing. So if you've got Bermuda grass, if you've got fescue, it really doesn't make any difference. The optimum time to do this is after it has rained and the soil is still damp and wet and pliable like it is now. And you just take some kind of shovel. There are straight edge tools that you can also use for this, but I have found these small-headed shovels to be the best. So you can kind of see what I've done right here. Now, for me, I have fake turf. And the second place that I saw it was in an article in Southern Living, and they demonstrated this very technique. And so this is how you too, no matter what kind of grass you have, you can get this really tailored, very crisp edge. And then what is brilliant about this, you guys, if you have someone that edges for you, or if you do your own edging, then whoever is doing that for you, whether it's with a weed eater or a regular edger, all you have to do then is just edge right along this border, and it makes it so much easier. You're not hitting up against, oh, say, metal edging or plastic coping or concrete edging, anything like that. You just have this beautiful crisp line. The other advantage to it is that when you dig a trench like this, it creates something of a void. And that means if you've got a grass that creeps or crawls, say Bermuda or even zoysia or something, then for it to escape and get into your flower beds, it has to cross this abyss or kind of cross this channel, this little moat that you've created. And it's much easier to see where those tendrils and those vines of your creeping grass are starting to encroach. So there you go. There is my number one completely free upgrade that you can do to your landscape to make it look really fabulous. The second thing that's completely free that we can all be attentive to really make our landscapes more impactful is to take into account the scale of our flower beds, really the scale of almost anything, whether it's a bird bath, a window box, any kind of feature in your garden, to make sure that the scale of those things match the scale of your home. So obviously I have flower beds that really come out into the yard, and I think they make a huge impact, and they match the scale of my house because my house is 2-story, it's rather stately, and it's large. If I had a smaller house, these really large beds might not look appropriate. Now, if you will, kind of imagine what it would look like if I didn't have any of these beds, I just had lawn, and I had nothing but a very, very narrow, small bed, say, 24 to 36 inches wide, that ran along this brick and stone wall in front of my house. It would look as if everything was just pushed up against that wall, and it wouldn't really match the scale of my house. So by increasing the size of these beds, it more appropriately matches the style and the scale and the grandeur of my house. The same thing applies to my window box. So if I had a very small window box that I had hanging below that window, say one of those hay bale type wrought iron window boxes, it would look too small. It would look too diminutive in scale to the size of that window. So when I incorporate anything, particularly if it's a built-in structure like this window box, then I want to make sure that the scale of the window box matches the scale of the windows, and then in totality the scale of the house itself. I think that makes a huge difference when we're attentive to scale. The other thing is, if you have garden furniture, if you have pots, if you have all sorts of things of that nature, then you want to heed that same advice and make sure that the scale of those garden ornaments and garden furnishings match the scale of your home. Sometimes I have way too many small pots, and that kind of messes with that scale dynamic, and that's one thing that I'm going to address this year. So be attentive to that. My number 2 landscape upgrade that costs nothing is just pay attention to the scale of things in your garden. And my number 3 is probably my favorite one. You guys have seen me demonstrate it over and over again on my YouTube videos, and that is to overhaul or prune up a shrub. Now, it can be for a number of different reasons. You might have a large evergreen shrub that is too mature, it's gotten oversized, and it's taking too much space up in your landscape, and you need to reduce its size so that its scale, referring to number 2, is more appropriate. The other thing that you can do is to prune up your specimen tree. This happens to be a viburnum. I have done it with Weigela. You guys have seen me do it with a variety of other plants. And that is where I really prune it up, removing the bottom leaves so that it looks like a small tree or a small specimen plant. And that makes the overhauled plant look more appropriate to the location. And not only does it enhance that which I am overhauling, but it makes the things around it that much more presentable, because I can then see the lines and the contours of the plant that is next to it. So for example, if this viburnum was in full leaf and it was just a big overgrown shrub, it would have shaded out and covered a good bit of this Green Mountain boxwood that's in the foreground. By pruning it up and removing a lot of the foliage and reducing its size horizontally, I have not only made this more stately and more presentable, but I have also exposed the beautiful contoured lines and the rounding mounded form of this boxwood. So now is a great time to go out into your own gardens and assess which of your plants might need an overhaul in the spring. Depending on what the shrub is, you may or may not want to do that right now. So late winter, early spring is typically a very good time to do that. It will flesh out with new growth and will really benefit from its new size and shape. Now let's move on to number 4. And finally, number 4, but before I give you that 4th tip, I want to answer a question. A number of you have asked if when we shoot these videos, we do it all in one take, or if I have elaborate notes, or just what our methodology is in producing these YouTube videos. And you guys, this is a true vlog. Typically, I just start at the beginning. Whatever mistakes I make, you guys see, and we just continue to the end, typically in one long stream. Now, on occasion, we stop and start again. Just then we had to do that because Stuart had to sneeze. But typically, like I say, this is a true vlog. So what you see is what you get, and hopefully the authenticity of that comes through, because these are things that I'm working on, thinking about, and planning for in my own garden. So that brings me to my number 4, focal points. The absence of, or the presence of, and does that focal point match its space? So imagine, if you will, again, put on your pretend lenses and think what this whole area would look like if this bench weren't here. Obviously, it might still be attractive, but it wouldn't be nearly as impactful. So by putting this bench, it serves as a focal point in addition to being seating. And so what I love, my favorite focal points are those that are both utilitarian and are attractive. So this garden bench makes a statement here. It blends in with the style of my garden, and it perfectly fits this space. Now, if I had something much smaller here, it wouldn't make as much of an impact, and it wouldn't make this entire vignette as appealing as it is. So, for example, let's say I didn't have this bench here, and I just had this little plant stand here all by itself. Even with pots on it, it probably would still look too small, and it wouldn't be as attractive to the eye and draw my eye to it as it does when there's something a little bit larger here. It's the same reason that if you have a pot that's way too small for its area, it doesn't make nearly the impact as a large pot whose presence not only looks great and grounds that space, but also is fitting the area that it consumes. So let's put on our imaginary glasses again as I come over here. And you can see the same thing with these boxwoods that are in these pots. These are really large pots that serve to ground this space. They make a wonderful focal point, and additionally, they also kind of define this space and my dining deck area. If I had, say, 3 very small pots here, they wouldn't do the same thing, and they wouldn't fill their role nearly as effectively. So that is my 4th thing, the absence or presence of focal points, and do they fit the area, the vignette, and the story that you're trying to tell. So those are my 4 Best pieces of advice. My idea came from Fine Gardening magazine to really explain things that are relatively simple, that don't cost anything, that you guys can do right now and assess as you do your own walkabout on Wednesday in your winter gardens. Well, if you've held on this long, here is my fashion epilogue for today, and it has turned cold out, so I'm all bundled up. My sunglasses are Cole Haan. I got these at Nordstrom Rack. My earrings came from one of my favorite clothing stores in Oklahoma City. It's in the Paseo district called Eden. My jacket, my puffer vest I've had for such a long time. I got it at New York and Company in the mall, and if I trip over my words, it's because it's kind of cold out and I'm having trouble moving my mouth. My turtleneck, which you can't see very well, I got at World Market. Who knew that they would have really good clothing items? So I got it at World Market. My breeches are Calvin Klein. I got these at an outlet mall in Colorado. My boots are just flat equestrian type boots. I got these at a store in Santa Fe. And my gloves, I love gloves. If you guys haven't already figured it out, I just love accessories, and gloves in the wintertime, even when I'm just kind of cold, are one of my favorite accessories, which leads me to my fashion question of the day. Of all of your accessories, which ones are your favorite? So obviously I love earrings, I love gloves, I love hats. Tell me what you love and what things really take your outfits up to the next level. So there you go, there's your outfit of the day.